Paul Heyman just crossed a line that no one saw coming, and the wrestling world is exploding right now. The wise man himself has sent the most brutal, career-ending message to Jon Moxley, and I'm telling you right now, this changes everything we thought we knew about the forbidden door between WWE and AEW. If you're not furious after hearing what Heyman said, then you haven't been paying attention. This isn't just another worked shoot, this is personal, this is real, and the implications are absolutely insane. Make sure you smash the like button because this story is going to shake the entire industry to its core, and if you're not subscribed, you're missing out on the most explosive wrestling news on YouTube. So here's what happened. During a recent interview that's now going absolutely viral across social media, Paul Heyman was asked about former WWE stars who left the company and found success elsewhere. The interviewer specifically mentioned Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, and the success he's had as AEW World Champion in his reign of terror across multiple promotions. And what Heyman said next, it sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling community. Heyman didn't hold back. He didn't play politician. He didn't give some corporate, sanitized response. No, the wise man went straight for the jugular and said, and I quote, Jon Moxley made his choice. He walked away from the global phenomenon that is WWE. He walked away from WrestleMania. He walked away from the Hall of Fame. And most importantly, he walked away from me. So let me make this crystal clear, Jon Moxley is not welcome back in WWE. Not now, not ever. That bridge isn't just burned, it's been demolished, paved over, and forgotten. Can you believe that? The audacity. The disrespect. But wait, it gets even more intense because Heyman didn't stop there. He continued, Dean Ambrose was given everything in WWE. He was handed opportunity after opportunity. He was part of the Shield, one of the greatest factions in WWE history. He main event WrestleMania. He held every single championship. And what did he do? He complained. He whined. He acted like WWE was holding him back when in reality, WWE made him a star. Without WWE, without the Shield, without Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins carrying him, Jon Moxley would be nobody. Smash that like button if you think Heyman is absolutely out of line with these comments. This is the kind of controversy that needs to be talked about, and we're going to break down every single layer of this explosive situation. Now, let's talk about why this is so significant. Jon Moxley left WWE back in 2019, and his departure was one of the most talked about exits in modern wrestling history. Moxley didn't just quietly leave, he gave interviews where he expressed frustration with WWE's creative process, the scripting, and how he felt like he wasn't being utilized properly. He talked about how WWE's system was suffocating his creativity and how he felt like he was dying inside as a performer. And you know what? After leaving WWE, Moxley proved everyone wrong. He went to AEW and immediately became their world champion. He's had critically acclaimed matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's worked independent shows and reminded everyone why he fell in love with professional wrestling in the first place. Moxley has essentially rebuilt his entire career and reputation on his terms, without WWE's machine behind him. So for Paul Heyman to come out now, years later, and say that Moxley is not welcome back in WWE, that's a massive statement. And here's where it gets even more complicated. There's history between Heyman and Moxley that a lot of people don't know about. Back when Moxley was still Dean Ambrose in WWE, there were rumors, strong rumors, that Heyman wanted to work with him. There were pitches for Ambrose to align with Heyman, to become a Heyman guy, but those plans never materialized. Some reports suggested that Vince McMahon didn't see Ambrose as a Heyman guy. Others said that the creative team couldn't figure out how to make it work. But imagine, just imagine, what Dean Ambrose could have been with Paul Heyman as his advocate. We saw what Heyman did for CM Punk's career. We saw what he did for Brock Lesnar. We saw what he did for Roman Reigns. Heyman has the Midas touch when it comes to elevating talent, so why didn't it happen with Ambrose? Hit that subscribe button because we're diving deep into the politics, the backstage drama, and the real reasons why WWE and Jon Moxley might never reconcile. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. There's been ongoing speculation, especially with WWE's current landscape and the merger with UFC under TKO Group Holdings, that we might see more crossover between promotions. We've already seen WWE work with other companies in ways they never did before. We've seen NJPW talent appear. We've seen references to other promotions that would have been impossible just a few years ago. So naturally, fans started wondering, could Jon Moxley ever return to WWE? Would there be a Shield reunion down the line? Could we see Moxley at the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant? These questions have been circulating for years, and Paul Heyman just slammed the door shut on all of that speculation with his comments. But here's what I think is really going on behind the scenes. Heyman's comments aren't just about Moxley. They're a message to every single wrestler in WWE who might be thinking about leaving. They're a warning shot to anyone who thinks the grass is greener on the other side. Heyman is essentially saying, if you leave WWE, don't expect to come back. Don't expect us to welcome you with open arms. You made your choice, now live with it. And honestly, that's a smart play from WWE's perspective. Think about it. In recent years, we've seen a revolving door of talent going back and forth between WWE and other promotions. Drew McIntyre left, got better, came back, and became WWE champion. Bobby Lashley left, dominated elsewhere, came back, and became a main eventer. Even Cody Rhodes left WWE, became the biggest star in the independent wrestling scene, and then returned to finish his story. So why is Moxley different? Why is he being singled out as someone who's not welcome back? Comment below with your theories because this is where it gets really juicy. One theory is that WWE, specifically Vince McMahon and Triple H, took Moxley's criticisms personally. When Moxley left in 2019, he didn't just leave quietly. He went on podcasts, he gave interviews, and he was very vocal about his problems with WWE's creative process. He talked about ridiculous storylines that were pitched to him, including one where he was supposed to get inoculated in the ring and cut a promo about getting his shots. He talked about how scripts were being rewritten hours before shows and how performers had no autonomy. Those comments made WWE look bad. They exposed the dysfunction behind the curtain. And in WWE, especially under Vince McMahon's leadership, you don't air dirty laundry in public. You don't criticize the company after you leave. It's considered disloyal, unprofessional, and it burns bridges permanently. Paul Heyman, being the ultimate WWE loyalist despite his ECW roots, is now carrying that message. He's telling Moxley and everyone else, you don't get to criticize WWE publicly and then expect to come back when it's convenient for you. Make sure you're subscribed because we're about to reveal the real reason why this beef goes so much deeper than anyone realizes. There's another layer to this story that involves Roman Reigns. Heyman has been Roman's special counsel, his wiseman, for years now. The tribal chief's reign has been legendary, and Heyman has been there every step of the way. But here's the thing, the Shield breakup and the subsequent careers of all three members have been very different. Roman Reigns stayed loyal to WWE, evolved his character, and became the biggest star in the company. Seth Rollins also stayed loyal, went through his own evolution, and remains a top star. But Dean Ambrose? He left. He walked away from his brothers. And in WWE's narrative, in Heyman's narrative, that's the ultimate betrayal. Heyman's loyalty to Roman means he's going to protect the tribal chief's legacy and the Shield's legacy from his perspective. In WWE's rewriting of history, Dean Ambrose was the weak link who couldn't handle the pressure. Jon Moxley represents what happens when you turn your back on the WWE family. And Heyman is making damn sure everyone knows that betrayal has consequences. But let's talk about Jon Moxley's perspective for a minute because this isn't one-sided. Moxley has been thriving since leaving WWE. He's arguably having the best run of his career. He's working the style he wants to work. He's cutting the promos he wants to cut. He's telling the stories he believes in. And most importantly, he's happy. You can see it in his work. You can hear it in his interviews. So when Paul Heyman says Moxley would be nobody without WWE, that's not just disrespectful, it's factually wrong. Moxley has proven that he doesn't need WWE to be successful. He doesn't need their machine, their production, their platform. He's built his own legend on his own terms. Drop a like if you think Jon Moxley is better off without WWE and doesn't need them anyway. Now, here's where this story could go from here. Option 1, Moxley completely ignores Heyman's comments. He stays in AEW, continues being a main event player there, works Japan when he wants, does independent shows, and lives his best life without ever acknowledging WWE or Heyman. That's probably the smart move, the mature move. Option 2, Moxley fires back. He goes on a podcast or does an interview and responds to Heyman's comments. He defends his decision to leave WWE. He explains why he's happier now. He maybe even takes some shots at WWE's current product or creative direction. This would add fuel to the fire and keep this story going for weeks. Option 3, and this is the nuclear option: what if AEW uses this? What if Tony Khan, being the wrestling fan that he is, sees this as an opportunity to create an angle? What if Moxley cuts a promo on AEW television addressing Heyman's comments? What if this becomes a real-life work shoot that blurs the lines between WWE and AEW in a way we've never seen before? The implications of that would be insane. It would create buzz for both companies. It would get mainstream attention. It would be the kind of controversy that draws eyeballs and sells tickets. And honestly, wrestling is at its best when there's real heat, real emotion, and real stakes. Comment below, would you want to see Jon Moxley respond to Paul Heyman, or should he just ignore it and move on? There's also the question of what WWE talent thinks about this. You know, wrestlers backstage are talking about Heyman's comments. You know, Seth Rollins has an opinion about this, considering his history with both Moxley and Heyman. You know, Roman Reigns is aware of what his Wiseman said. And you know, there are current WWE wrestlers who might be considering leaving the company who are now thinking twice after hearing that they might not be welcome back. This is psychological warfare. This is WWE drawing a line in the sand and saying, you're either with us or against us. There's no in-between. And in the current wrestling landscape where talent has more options than ever before, where AEW exists as a legitimate alternative, where New Japan is accessible, where the independent scene is thriving, WWE making this kind of statement is bold. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story is far from over, and you don't want to miss any updates. Let's also address the elephant in the room. Could this all be a work? Could WWE and Heyman be planting seeds for a future angle? Could this be the beginning of a storyline that eventually leads to Moxley's shocking return at the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania? In professional wrestling, anything is possible. We've seen worked shoots before. We've seen wrestlers burn bridges only to return months or years later. We've seen bitter rivals become tag team partners. So yes, there's a chance this is all part of a much bigger plan. But here's why I don't think this is a work: the delivery, the conviction, the specificity of Heyman's comments. When he said, "Not now, not ever," that felt real. When he called out Moxley for complaining and whining, that felt personal. And when he said that bridge isn't just burned, it's demolished and paved over, that doesn't sound like something you say if you're planning a surprise return down the line. Plus, legally and practically, WWE and AEW are competitors. They don't work together. They don't share talent in the traditional sense. So the idea that this is all a coordinated work between the two companies seems unlikely, if not impossible, given the current business landscape. Make sure that like button is destroyed if you're invested in this story and want to see where it goes next. Here's what I think is the real story. Paul Heyman is 58 years old. He's been in the wrestling business for over 4 decades. He's seen everything. He's worked with everyone. And at this stage of his career, he's cementing his legacy as the ultimate WWE loyalist. He's protecting his position. He's protecting Roman Reigns. And he's making it clear that loyalty matters. Heyman knows that in 5, 10, 15 years, when the history books are written about this era of professional wrestling, people will remember who stayed loyal and who didn't. They'll remember who built WWE into the empire it is and who walked away. Heyman is making sure that narrative is controlled, and in that narrative, Jon Moxley is the guy who gave up, who quit, who couldn't handle the pressure. Is that fair? Absolutely not. But that's how WWE operates. That's how they control their story. And Heyman, being the master manipulator and storyteller that he is playing his role perfectly. From Moxley's perspective, none of this matters. He's moved on. He's successful. He's happy. He doesn't need WWE's approval or Heyman's blessing. He proved everyone wrong by becoming a massive star without them. And honestly, that's the best revenge anyone could have. But for the fans? For US? This is the kind of drama that makes wrestling fascinating. This is what we live for. The real-life tension, the behind-the-scenes politics, the clash of egos and philosophies about what professional wrestling should be. This isn't just about Paul Heyman and Jon Moxley. This is about 2 different visions for wrestling's future clashing in real time. If you've watched this far, you're a real one. Hit that subscribe button and join the WWE Reporter family for more exclusive news, analysis, and controversies. So what happens next? Honestly, probably nothing for a while. Moxley will continue doing his thing in AEW and beyond. Heyman will continue being the tribal chief's Wiseman in WWE. The wrestling world will continue spinning. But make no mistake, these comments will be remembered. They'll be referenced. They'll become part of wrestling lore. And who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when both men are looking back on their careers, they'll laugh about this moment. Or maybe the beef will still be real. Maybe Jon Moxley will retire having never returned to WWE, and Paul Heyman's words will have been prophetic. Maybe this is truly the end of any possibility of Dean Ambrose ever coming home. What's your take? Team Heyman or Team Moxley? Do you think WWE was right to be upset about how Moxley left, or do you think wrestlers have the right to speak their truth? Should Moxley ever consider returning to WWE if circumstances changed, or should he stay away forever? Sound off in the comments because I want to hear from you. This story represents everything that's complicated and fascinating about modern professional wrestling. It's about loyalty versus creative freedom. It's about corporate interests versus individual happiness. It's about legacy, ego, money, and pride. And there's no clear right or wrong answer, which makes it even more compelling to discuss and debate. One thing's for certain: Paul Heyman's explosive warning has been sent. Jon Moxley is not welcome in WWE, according to the Wiseman. And whether you agree with that or not, whether you think it's justified or petty, whether you think it's real or part of some elaborate work, you can't deny that it's created massive buzz and got everyone talking. And at the end of the day, getting people talking is what professional wrestling is all about. So in that sense, Paul Heyman just did exactly what he's been doing for 4 decades. He created a moment, he sparked a conversation, and he reminded everyone why he's considered one of the greatest minds in the history of this business. Smash that like button one more time, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you never miss breaking news from WWE Reporter, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on this insane situation. Are you Team Heyman or Team Moxley? Let's discuss. This has been WWE Reporter bringing you the most explosive stories in wrestling, and I'll see you in the next video.